When the spotlight breaks. Tell me the truth, Jackson. Yes, he whispered, voice fraying. I'm in love with someone else. Her knees threatened to buckle, but she leaned against the doorway, grounding herself with the truth. A man? Welcome to LA's Listening Lounge. Stories you can hear and words you can feel. Tonight's story is a stirring tale of love, fame, betrayal, and a woman's rise back into the light. Settle in, breathe deep, and let the story unfold. Chapter 1. The Star and the Behind-the-Scenes Man. Serenity Vale was accustomed to lights, camera lights, stage lights, ring lights, the insistent staccato of red carpet flashes, but none of them rattled her anymore. At 31, she had learned to inhabit stillness beneath the glare of fame, a skill honed through years where adoration was currency and privacy rarely paid. Yet even in her practiced poise, Serenity sometimes wondered if the world saw her or only the reflection cast by all that brightness. The applause, the interviews, the endless nights alone in hotel suites, each had etched a craving for something real, someone who could look past the shimmering mask and witness the woman underneath. Some nights, she feared what it might mean if someone truly did. She'd sung her way to the top, released 5 platinum albums, claimed a seat as a judge on America's favorite reality music show, and was mere weeks into filming her first major motion picture when the quiet ache for authenticity began to pulse. Louder than ever. That's when she met Jackson Reed. While the rest of the crew tiptoed around her celebrity, voices hushed, eyes averted, Jackson didn't. In the production department, he moved with a measured ease, his cool, nerdy demeanor defined by a meticulous focus on lighting setups and camera angles. He treated her not like a headline, but like a woman doing her job. It unsettled and soothed her at once. Serenity felt invisible and seen, all in the same breath. The first week, she noticed the way he listened, not to what she said, but to the silences she left between words. The second week, he started noticing her too. Their early conversations were brief and technical. Your mark is here. We're adjusting the filter. But each exchange lingered, threading a subtle intimacy through the ordinary. By week 3, lunch breaks became moments of quiet anticipation. Serenity found herself seeking his company, drawn by the gentle safety of his presence. By week 4, he arrived with her favorite to-go coffee, the warmth of his hands echoing in the laughter they shared behind the soundstage. The connection was easy, surprising, and infused with a comfort fame had never offered. One night, after a long shoot, Jackson walked her to her car. The studio lot was dark, the buzz of generators fading into a hush. You ever get tired of everyone thinking they know you? He asked, his voice low enough to invite honesty. Serenity blinked, startled by the question and by how much she needed to answer it. All the time. Her words floated between them, heavy with unspoken longing. He nodded. I don't need your spotlight. Just you. It was a sentence that pierced her defenses. Serenity felt the familiar armor of performance slip, exposing a yearning she kept hidden even from herself. That night, she lay awake, replaying his words, wondering if maybe, finally, she could rest her heart with someone who wanted her for more than her soundtrack. The months that followed blurred in a rush of stolen glances and playful texts, of dinners that stretched long into the night and secret moments tucked in the wings between takes. Time seemed to bend a whirlwind of novelty and comfort, of slow-building trust. 3 months after that moonlit confession, they were inseparable. 6 months, and Serenity wore his ring, a symbol both thrilling and terrifying in its promise. The journey from engagement to marriage unfurled like a montage, shared sunsets, tangled sheets, deep talks about dreams and fears, all stitched together with laughter and hope. Each day, Serenity let herself believe a little more in the reality of being loved for herself. A year later, they wed on a Malibu cliff at sunset, the air salted and sweet, violins weaving melody into the breeze. 50 guests watched Serenity glow, her happiness quiet and immense, a joy so profound it startled her, too big to be contained by photographs or press releases. In the hush between waves, she whispered gratitude to the ocean, hoping that this moment would anchor her for the years to come. Home life with Jackson became her sanctuary, a kitchen scented with coffee and cinnamon toast, the soft beat of harmony and Haven's laughter echoing down the hallway, River's tiny fingers curling around hers at dawn. In the warmth of their living room, Serenity lost herself in board games and bedtime stories, the velvet hush of night broken only by her family's breathing. These were the hours when she felt most herself, safe from the demands of cameras and crowds, her heart unclenched at last. Yet outside their home, the world's noise surged. Red carpets, movie sets, interviews, each event pressed against her senses, overwhelming in floodlights and expectation. She learned to compartmentalize. Silk gowns and practiced smiles for the world, sweatpants and messy buns for family breakfasts. The contrast was stark. Public grandeur versus private grace and serenity clung to the sanctuary Jackson had built for her, hoping it would remain unbreakable. To the world, they were the perfect love story. And for 15 years, Serenity believed they were. She carried their happiness like a shield, convinced that what they'd built could weather any storm. But beneath the quiet rhythms, a shadow waited, and soon the night would come when the spotlight broke. Chapter 2. Cracks in the Fairy Tale. 15 years of marriage had shaped a rhythm. School drop-offs, birthday parties, red carpets, movie sets, award shows, football games, studio sessions, family vacations, PTA meetings. They lived as a unit, a polished one. But somewhere around year 13, Serenity felt Jackson pulling away. The feeling crept into her mornings and settled into the spaces between their conversations, coloring even the most ordinary moments with doubt. At first, it was small things. Late nights, mood shifts, new hobbies, unexplained expenses, long business trips that didn't match his schedule. She caught herself rationalizing each one, telling herself that marriage wasn't a straight line. She'd seen enough love stories unravel in the tabloids to know that real life was messier. Still, she clung to their cadence, to the history they'd built together. By year 14, her intuition whispered louder, its voice impossible to ignore. Jackson became defensive over harmless questions. He kept a second phone, claimed it was for work. He guarded his laptop like it held nuclear launch codes. He wore cologne to run errands. He smiled more at the screen than at her. Serenity tried to brush it off, but the certainty she'd once felt was slipping, replaced by a constant ache of doubt. And yet, when they were in public, he was the perfect husband, supportive, attentive, charming. The world loved him. Sometimes Serenity wondered if she loved the man he was in front of others more than the stranger sharing her breakfast table. Her spirit screamed something was wrong, but her heart, loyal, hopeful, refused to believe it could be that wrong. She remembered the laughter they once shared over burnt pancakes on Sunday mornings, a warmth now replaced by cold suspicion. The echo of those simple joys haunted her. She feared losing not just her marriage, but the sanctuary she'd found in their shared rituals. One afternoon, while reviewing contracts in her home office, she overheard the kids say, "Daddy's friend is nice. He comes over when Mommy's gone." Serenity froze mid-sentence, her pen hovering over the page. Memories flickered. Jackson chasing the children around the backyard, their giggles rising like music. Was that happiness gone, replaced by secrets? "Friend?" she asked gently, entering the room, forcing warmth into her voice. River nodded. "Yeah, he's really nice. Daddy said he's helping with work." Serenity smiled, hugged her babies, and went upstairs with her heartbeat pounding in her ears. In that moment, she realized what she feared most wasn't betrayal, but the unraveling of their home, the laughter, the mornings, the safety. Something was off. Something was dangerously off. Later that night, she found Jackson in the kitchen scrolling on his phone. She tried to sound casual, but her voice trembled. Are you seeing someone? Jackson didn't look up right away. When he did, his face flickered, not guilt, but impatience, a shadow passing over his eyes. He forced a dry laugh, shaking his head. Seriously, Serenity? You've been watching too many soap operas. I wish my life was that interesting. The words landed with a thud, brittle and dismissive. But Serenity caught the strain in his voice, the way his hands clenched around his mug. His eyes didn't match the lie he told, and their silent language, once filled with affection, now brimmed with suspicion. Serenity couldn't sleep. She replayed the exchange, her mind ricocheting between hope and dread. The next day, she called her attorney. She didn't want a divorce. She wanted clarity. But what she got shattered everything. Chapter 3. The Double Life. It was Mara Jenkins who delivered the truth, her expression somber, voice gentle but unyielding. Serenity sat rigid across from her attorney, hands circling a mug of tea that had grown cold and bitter. Mara spoke with careful precision, laying out the evidence. Bank statements, flagged purchases, secret credit cards, transfers to unfamiliar names, receipts stamped with glossy boutique addresses. The words tumbled into a blur, but the facts landed sharp as glass. Serenity's thoughts splintered. Somewhere beneath the shock and disbelief, a painful clarity began to flicker. She remembered late nights when Jackson claimed to be working, absences that stretched longer, a scent on his clothes she could never place, a distracted smile over breakfast, a phone always turned face down. She'd wanted to believe in him, wanted so desperately to trust that their life, their family was enough. Had she ever truly seen him? Mara continued, her tone steady but heavy with implication. Jackson didn't just hide an affair. He created a second life, one he funded through joint accounts and by opening credit cards in both your names. He transferred money, paid bills, covered rent for another apartment. There were gifts, travel, even investments in small businesses for his partner, all using assets you shared, Serenity. Legally, it's unauthorized use. Serenity's voice was barely audible. What does that mean for me? It could be considered marital fraud. You're potentially liable for some debts unless we act fast. There may be criminal charges against Jackson, embezzlement, identity theft, depending on how far it went. But the banks can pursue restitution, and they rarely separate joint responsibility without a fight, Mara explained, her words landing with weight. You could be called into court to prove you were unaware. You'll need to protect your assets and yourself. Something inside Serenity twisted, grief and fury intermingling. She looked up at Mara, searching for an anchor. I gave him everything. I built a life for us. How did I not see? Mara didn't answer. The office screamed with silence. Later that night, Serenity stood at the threshold of their bedroom, heart roaring. Jackson sat hunched on the bed, his shoulders folded with exhaustion. The confrontation came not with rage, but a quiet, trembling desperation. Tell me the truth, Jackson. His jaw quivered, eyes glistening with something like fear. In that moment, Serenity saw the boy beneath the man, the one who'd hidden behind charm and ambition. A flash of memory. Jackson at 19, uncertain, retreating from questions, always seeking approval, never daring to be fully seen. She realized how long he'd been fighting shadows, how much of himself he'd buried to fit the life they built together. Yes, he whispered, voice fraying. I'm in love with someone else. Her knees threatened to buckle, but she leaned against the doorway, grounding herself with the truth. A man? He nodded, shame and relief flickering across his face. Did you use our money to fund his life? The silence stretched, thick with everything unspoken. Jackson's eyes met hers, remorse flickering but quickly replaced by the calm of confession. I did, he admitted, voice hollow. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did, Serenity replied, tears cutting cold lines down her cheeks. And you never stopped. That night, the world she'd known shattered. The next morning, Serenity filed for divorce, her hands trembling, her heart raw. She didn't expect the war that waited on the other side, only that survival would now mean fighting for everything she had left. Chapter 4. The Custody Battle from Hell. Jackson's response shocked the world. Instead of privately settling, he fought hard. He challenged the prenup he once praised, demanded full custody, requested alimony, and even asked for child support, despite being the one who had financially drained their household. Each demand landed like a blow to Serenity's already bruised heart. She felt the sting of betrayal every time Jackson entered the courtroom, memories of their happier days clashing with the cold reality before her. Sometimes the echo of their children laughing in their old kitchen haunted her as she watched him walk in hand with his boyfriend, while paparazzi flashes stuttered through the courthouse windows like distant lightning. The courtroom's fluorescent lights buzzed above, merciless and sterile. The scent of coffee and floor polish mingled with the faint perfume of anxiety. Benches pressed uncomfortably against her back, and the sounds of whispered strategies from the attorneys filled the air. Her palms sweated as she gripped her notebook, griping the table, attempting to anchor herself amid the chaos. Jackson's attorney painted Serenity as an absent, career-driven mother. Serenity's breath hitched, stung by the accusation, even though everyone knew she built her schedule around her kids. Was her silence strength, or was it surrender? She wrestled with the urge to shout the truth, to defend the sacrifices she'd made, but instead bit her tongue, knowing that every word would become tabloid fodder. The betrayal ran deeper than the ocean. Serenity questioned whether her resolve to stay calm for her children was enough, or if, by remaining composed, she risked losing the very things she fought to protect. Her children were watching. Her fans were watching. God was watching. So Serenity refused to engage publicly. She forced herself to meet Jackson's gaze even as her heart threatened to break all over again. Court became her battlefield, quiet halls echoing with tension, cold chairs beneath her, and every day a test of endurance. No matter how vicious the fight became, she reminded herself her children came first. Her peace came next. Chapter 5. The Illegal Discovery. Night after night, Serenity sat alone at the kitchen table, the one place that had always anchored their family, now scattered with legal pads, bank statements, and the ghosts of laughter she could almost still hear. There had been a time when Jackson would come home late, kiss her temple, and whisper that everything he did was for them. She remembered the warmth of those words, the belief she'd clung to as she tucked their children into bed, the gentle weight of her daughter's sleeping head on her shoulder, the sticky notes they left her. "Love you, Mom. You're our hero!" But love, Serenity realized, could be twisted. It could be weaponized, wielded as a shield for secrets she never imagined lurking beneath their domestic surface. The real unraveling began when her lawyer, a quietly tenacious woman named Debbie, called her in for a late meeting. Serenity braced herself as Debbie spread out the findings, her voice gentle but edged with gravity. Serenity listened, heart pounding, as Debbie described how her team had traced a pattern of unexplained withdrawals, small at first, then growing bolder, always just under thresholds that would trigger alerts. They followed the digital breadcrumbs through shell companies and forged consulting invoices that bore Jackson's neat signature, until everything led to a hidden savings fund in his boyfriend's name. He had siphoned money from accounts Serenity had built for their children's future, college, travel, the piano lessons her youngest adored. The truth settled over her like cold rain. Jackson had been financing a separate life with the money meant for their family's dreams. The impact was immediate. The college savings account was nearly depleted. Vacations they promised the kids, the renovations Serenity had put off, even the emergency fund for medical bills, all had been quietly bled. Serenity felt her world contract, the safe path she'd tried to build for her children undermined by the very man she once trusted most. The shame stung, but the betrayal cut deeper. How would she explain to her children that the life she'd promised was suddenly, inexplicably smaller? Debbie's voice softened as she outlined the legal implications. He could face charges, fraud, embezzlement, financial abuse. Serenity closed her eyes, picturing her son's question the night before. "Will Dad come home for my birthday?" And her daughter's tiny arms flung around her waist, squeezing for comfort she could barely provide. She thought of the night they all fell asleep on the couch, Jackson reading aloud while Serenity braided her daughter's hair, the kind of ordinary happiness she'd fought to preserve. The pain was sharp, but Serenity knew her children's innocence had to be protected no matter how much it cost her. Her attorney pressed on, pragmatic. "If we pursue criminal charges, he could owe you millions." But Serenity shook her head, resolve settling in her bones. "I don't need his money," she whispered, voice raw. "I just need my children safe." Every choice she made now was shaped by the memory of their trust, their laughter echoing through the house that Jackson had nearly emptied. Serenity understood. Vengeance would only deepen the wounds her children already carried. The days blurred into a routine of legal meetings, strategy sessions, and sleepless nights haunted by what-ifs. Yet, as Serenity walked through the courthouse halls, her notes clutched tight, her heart battered but unbroken, she felt a new clarity. The fight was no longer just about what had been stolen, but about what she refused to let go. Her children's future, her own peace, and the hope that they could rebuild from the ashes. When the judge finally reviewed the mountains of evidence, there was no ambiguity left. The misappropriation was clear, the manipulation undeniable. Jackson's actions had threatened the very foundation of their family, draining not just bank accounts but trust and stability. In contrast, Serenity had remained a constant. Steadfast, loving, the quiet anchor in a storm she never deserved. The tide had turned not with dramatic accusations, but with Serenity's unwavering commitment to protect what truly mattered. Chapter 6. The verdict that freed her. The courtroom was a box of held breath. Leather-bound silence pressed against the walls, the sour tang of old coffee clinging to the air, and fluorescent lights buzzing above like trapped insects. Serenity's pulse thudded in her ears, steady and relentless as she gripped the slick wood of the table. She could feel the faint vibrations of Jackson's tapping foot echoing across the polished floor. The judge's robe rustled, breaking the hush with a gravity that pinned every eye forward. "Primary custody," the judge intoned, his voice measured, reverberating through the stillness. "Serenity Vale." A shiver ran through her, not cold but electric, a current of disbelief and relief tangled together. Alimony, denied. Child support Jackson must pay. Prenup challenge rejected. Financial damages to Serenity, granted $5 million. Jackson's jaw flexed, his fists tightened, but he didn't look at her. The judge's gaze was steady, almost merciful. "You violated the integrity of this marriage and exploited marital funds for personal gain. The consequences are yours, not hers." A hush, thicker than before, draped the room. Serenity's chest tightened. She felt the scratch of her dress against her skin, the faint scent of her own lavender perfume rising beneath the acrid aroma of legal paper. She didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She simply breathed. Years of shouldering invisible chains began to loosen. Her inner voice, once timid, whispered, "This is your air now. Fill your lungs." Her attorney slid a heavy folder toward her. Paper edges hissed against the table. "He owes you," her attorney started, voice careful, eyes searching for her reaction. Serenity stared at the folder, a brief storm of old wounds and unexpected peace flickering through her chest. "I don't want his money. The only thing I will accept is child support. I don't care how much I make, these are his kids too, and he needs to do his part." "Serenity, are you sure? $5 million is a lot to walk away from." Serenity pondered on what she just heard. You are right. It is a lot. How about we donate it to a Women and Children Foundation? Consider it done. Serenity heard her attorney say. She gathered her things and walked out the courthouse with her head held high, feeling free and ready for the new journey she was forced to travel. Chapter 7. Rebuilding the Woman in the Mirror. After the storm cleared, Serenity found herself breathing in a new kind of air, fresh, tinged with hope, and scented with the promise of new beginnings. She wandered through her new home, sunlight streaming in and dappling the leafy plants she'd carefully chosen. The rooms echoed with laughter and music, her own honest songs, written late at night with her feet curled beneath her and a mug of green tea steaming nearby. Sometimes she paused mid-verse, letting raw emotions spill onto the page unfiltered and true. Monday mornings became sacred. Mommy and Me Mondays started when she and her children gathered in the kitchen, giggling as River knocked over a bowl of cereal, milk splashing onto the counter. Serenity bent to clean up, but instead of sighing, she burst out in laughter, a spontaneous belly-deep sound. Her children joined in, their laughter ringing through the house, light and carefree. In those small, messy moments, Serenity rediscovered joy, letting it fill the spaces that once held sorrow. Driven by empathy, Serenity launched a foundation for women surviving financial betrayal. She met with survivors in sunlit conference rooms, her voice steady and warm as she shared her own story and listened to theirs. Sometimes she hugged a trembling woman and whispered, "You are not alone." At night, Serenity reflected on these encounters, feeling grateful for the chance to turn her pain into purpose. She celebrated milestones with her children. Harmony's first piano recital, Haven's soccer trophy, clapping the loudest and snapping photos that would fill their memory boxes. When she stepped back onto the acting stage, Serenity did so with a quiet confidence. She no longer sought validation in anyone's eyes but her own. She laughed freely, trusted herself, and moved through life knowing that endings, painful as they seemed, were sometimes just another name for protection. Her children saw more than her strength. They saw her resilience, her growth, and the gentle way she mentored others. Her fans felt the shift too, drawn to the authenticity that radiated from her music and her actions. Serenity Vale stepped into her spotlight once more, her own, undimmed and unwavering, proving to herself and to the world that hope and healing could follow even the darkest storm. Epilogue: The Light That Never Left. 2 years later, Serenity stood backstage at a dazzling award show, her comeback album nominated for Album of the Year. The air pulsed with electric anticipation. Distant cheers throbbed like a heartbeat through the walls. She pressed her palms together, feeling the cool fabric of her gown, the faint tremble in her fingertips. Her songs were raw, every lyric inked with truth. River, Harmony, and Haven waited in the dressing room, their laughter bubbling up, filling the space with warmth. On her phone, a message from Jackson flickered across the screen. "Thank you for not destroying my life, and thank you for raising our children with grace, even when I didn't deserve it." Serenity smiled softly, the words settling over her like a gentle breeze. She didn't reply. Some stories don't need sequels. Suddenly, the announcer's voice boomed. "And the winner is Serenity Vale!" Confetti exploded overhead, shimmering gold and silver as it drifted onto her shoulders, cool against her skin. The thunderous applause vibrated through her chest, mixing with the bright, aching glow of the spotlight that warmed her face. She stepped forward, letting the light envelop her, no longer afraid of its brilliance. She remembered nights spent doubting herself, questioning if she'd ever find her way back. Now she understood. Every heartbreak had carved space for new strength. Every loss had been a lesson in love and endurance. Serenity accepted her award, voice steady and clear. To every woman who loved deeply, broke loudly, and rebuilt quietly, this is for you. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning. As she gazed at the crowd, she saw her children clapping proudly in the front row and caught sight of a fan dabbing tears from her eyes, moved by Serenity's journey. Others stood cheering, united in hope and celebration. He broke the marriage, but he did not break her. She was still standing, still shining, still singing. And as the cameras flashed, the spotlight that once felt heavy now felt like home, a place she belonged, filled with warmth, courage, and the promise of new beginnings. Thank you for listening to LA's Listening Lounge. If this story touched you, inspired you, or made you think, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the LA's Listening Lounge with someone who loves a good story. Until next time, keep writing your story, one chapter at a time.